Hi everybody, I'm Steve,
I'm Sam.
and we're here to talk today about why we homeschool.
And it's not for the reason that probably a lot of people think that we do.
That's very true. I mean, we did make a few notes to kind of tell everybody why we do it. It's nothing in this says that you have to do it our way, and nothing says you have to do it at all.
Yeah, we fully support everybody's decision whether to homeschool, send to public school, private school. Steve was raised going to private school. I was raised going to public school. And we support every reason why parents choose those options. Steve was even homeschooled for a little bit while growing up. What, like a year?
Yeah, it was a year, and that was interesting. My dad owned a farm, so I had to work on the farm and homeschool at the same time. So it made it a little interesting.
And you guys went to private school and homeschooled because of your religion that you grew up being taught.
Right.
And we actually don't homeschool because of religion. That's not something of the reason why we homeschool. But we do have very specific reasons why we homeschool, and I like to talk about those a lot, especially with people that are contemplating homeschool, or even people that are just like our neighbor across the street who likes to, well, what grade are you in? What are you learning? What about the kids' social? Um, and so I really like to explain these reasons because it's the reason why we homeschool. It's like it gets down to our values as a family.
And we have, what is it, seven?
Well, really only 6.
Six. Okay, so we have about six items that we'd like to go over with why we do this.
Yeah, these are the ones that come to the top of our mind.
Right.
So, the very first one that we listed was safety and social, and it kind of goes into number 2 also. When we first started homeschooling, this wasn't one of the main reasons, but as we grew as a family, it became one of our main reasons. So we've had a kind of a different homeschooling experience than I think most have. Our kids have actually, our oldest went to public school, then we homeschooled. They went back to public school for about a year and a half, and now we homeschool again. Our oldest has actually decided to go back to public school one other time besides that, but now she is going to be homeschooled through high school. But safety and social is a big one now. Maybe not as big as it was when we started. I don't think it was on the top of our mind when we started.
No, and I mean we might have had some issues beginning with, do we homeschool, do we not homeschool, send them back, don't send them back.
Right.
But we kind of had that eye-opening experience.
One
I think,
very frightening day.
yes. You were,
Yeah, I was the one that kind of
yeah,
started it all. Like, well, not started it all, but kind of experienced it a little bit more firsthand. So we had sent our kids back to school because I went back to work, and my job had kind of changed, and I didn't want to stop working at the time. I don't think I really could have. So we sent him back to school, and one day I was heading to work, and I was actually on the phone with him. He was on his break, and about 6 cop cars came flying off the interstate, and I had said something about the kids' school and how a certain road was closed, and Steve said that road just opened back up.
just opened
And I still get chills to this day telling this story. I still want to like cry. So I had noticed that all the cops had turned down that road and that they were heading to our kids' school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, like I said, I was still on the phone with Steve, and I turned down the road, and there's one light before the kids' school, and I was stopped by police there and told that I could not enter, and we weren't really told what was going on.
And
Not at that point.
And that light was still a good half a mile away from the school entrance. So.
Yeah. We just knew at that point that the kids' school had been put under a lockdown, and this isn't a type of lockdown that we had ever witnessed before.
Right. I think it was around maybe a year or two after the elementary school shooting.
Yeah, it was within a couple. Like I mean, there's been so many shootings at schools that
Right.
I was terrified. I was like hyperventilating. I could never imagine what parents go through with an actual school shooting, which it wasn't a school shooting. There was a 18-year-old kid who had some mental disabilities, maybe I guess is the best way to put it,
Right, yeah.
who had a toy gun outside of the kid's school. And
We're not sure if he lived across the street, but they said he came out of one of the houses across the street that
Yeah.
he was visiting, or he lived there, but
whew,
that opened our eyes up.
that was a big decision to go back to homeschooling.
Yeah.
My job wasn't as important as the safety of our kids. And our oldest and even our son have had some bullying issues. And
So getting,
so, like, that'll probably go into like, the number 2 reason why.
would, I mean, be, still the safety and the social, I mean, we've got a couple notes here for bullying, that's been a big thing.
Yeah. Our oldest was bullied really bad when
Yeah.
she was younger. I don't think she's bullied as much anymore.
And our son, I think he got bullied more than he knowed.
No, that's why
us
we.
homeschoolers. No, more than he knew. You know, he was getting bullied, and he'd tell us that he was playing with friends on the,
Right.
on the playground, and he would tell us how they were playing, and we're just like, that's
That's
bullying.
not okay.
You know, violence in the schools. I mean, luckily our youngest kids never really got to that age where there was a lot of violence. I mean, pushing, pulling hair type stuff maybe, but
Our
nothing-
oldest had some violence issues.
Yeah,
She one time her hair was pulled by a boy in school, and I think she was choked one time.
Yeah, so,
So,
that's one of the.
and then there's always drugs too. I mean, and that's anywhere really, but you know, I come from a family with a bunch of drug addiction and drug abuse, and we don't want our kids being introduced to that, but we do talk about it. Our kids know that drugs are bad and not to do them, but we don't want peer pressure to happen where that's concerned. So, but the safety and social, I mean, the social aspect and as the dogs play fight in the kitchen next to us, Hunter, Everest. The social aspects of, you know, the bullying and stuff like that, you know, I'm going to get a little bit off topic here. One of the biggest things that gets brought up when you say, oh, you're homeschooling, is what about the kids' social interactions? And we work really hard to make sure that happened. In this last year with COVID, that was really difficult. But we try to work really hard so that our kids still have social interaction with kids. There's play groups and stuff like that. So if you're thinking about homeschooling and you're worried about the social interaction, one of the biggest things I say is in schools they're told to sit down and be quiet, and they get recess and maybe lunch, if they're even, you know, young enough to get recess. And so going into homeschool, get into those play groups, get into those, you know, if you have a teen, get into the teen meetups, they do have those, or extracurricular activities, which is where our kids have made a lot of their friends. So,
Facebook's a great site for finding people that
yes.
will get
Yes,
out there.
we're in probably like 20 groups for homeschooling.
Yeah.
So, but the safety and social really goes into our next one. I keep trying to get to that one. Our son has an IEP he is diagnosed with a couple things, and so he has an IEP. And our oldest has a 504 because she has seizures. And when Matthew was in pre-K, the first time we decided to homeschool, we noticed that the schools just weren't able to give him the learning environment that he needed. Not necessarily the therapies that he needed, but the learning environment that he needed. And he really needs a quiet, calm learning environment. And he's very, very smart, like wicked smart. Is that wicked? Is that a cool word? I don't know anymore.
Radical?
No, not radical.
Oh, that's way bad.
But he's really, really smart. So to put him in like a special ed class just didn't make sense, and to get that quiet setting. But he couldn't be in like a gifted setting because that's also not quiet. So we were kind of in the middle of the two. And then our oldest, who has a 504 plan for her seizures, once they had a fire drill and they lost her. They found her 45 minutes later in a bathroom having a seizure. And then a couple years later, or not a couple years later, the next time they actually found her in a bathroom, and she had a seizure and she had a headache, and she was sitting on the floor, And I will never forget the day that she called me and told me that they found her in the bathroom, and the first thing that they said was, let's do a sobriety test. They didn't care about her 504. They cared more about if she was drunk or high. So that's been a big reason why we pulled them out, is those reasons specifically.
Right.
I think that was actually what started it.
Yes. And I mean, in saying that, we're not doing a pros and cons right now of homeschooling versus public schools, but
No, I think we need to bring the pros and cons. I think we need to bring at least Brianna, our oldest, into that conversation, because we don't see a lot of the cons to homeschooling.
right. But on our side, from the parent side, of course, we did see in the few years that we did have them in school, I mean, there was a few teachers that really did make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was it didn't carry into the next year. You don't bring a teacher with you, obviously.
Right.
And even our oldest daughter, she had a great teacher in 5th grade, I think. The guy that...
The 6th grade.
6th grade. So, I mean, there's
She
some...
didn't shoot. That was 6th grade was when she decided to go back.
Right.
So.
But she also had 3 teachers during that year, and 2 of them were horrible. So it also, I mean, if I were to do a pros and cons on that, it would be, you know, some teachers are really good and some really get their teaching skills put to the test.
Yeah. Matthew's very last teacher was amazing, and we actually had started the next year. Like, we were there, 2 days, and then we decided, nope, we're just going to go back to homeschooling.
Right.
So, that was when that shooting happened.
Yeah.
Or, not shooting, but shooting threat, I guess I should say.
Right.
No,
I mean, I guess we can go down to this is our third
reason.
point. That's our schedule.
Yeah.
So,
One of the big things with homeschooling is, like, I know there's a lot of homeschooling parents out there that have a very strict schedule. Like, their kids still wake up, they still do school during the day, between certain times, and we don't do it that way. It's not what works for our family. We allow our kids to sleep. You know, our bodies really tell us how much sleep we need. I mean, I'm not going to let my kids sleep for, 15, 24 hours. But some of our kids, I say some of our kids, all of our kids sleeping, they really need a lot of sleep, especially our oldest.
And when you really think about it, I mean, there's some nights that you're cramming for a test the next day, so you're staying up till midnight,
Right.
1 o'clock, and then is that really helping you for the test in the next day?
Right. And I mean, there's studies out there that probably say cramming right before a test is actually the best way to learn it. But sleep is such a necessary part of growing while they're growing, that we really feel it's important for them to sleep as long as they need to. So homeschooling allows us to do that, because at one point when they were going to public school, they were in extracurricular activities still, so we weren't getting home until 8 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. We still had to eat dinner, homework. They might have been going to bed by 9:30 and then waking up at 6 o'clock the next day, and you know, they were cranky, they were irritable, they were tired. And so that's been one big reason why we decided to to homeschool, and that's why we don't overschedule them. But it also allows Steve to spend more time with the kids, because his work schedule, the line of work he's in, he doesn't have a normal 9-to-5 job.
Right. I know I'm not in the Army. I know more in the shirt.
Used to be.
Yeah, I did used to be in the military, so...
Did used to be.
Did it, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But, I am an aircraft mechanic, and that takes you through weekends, holidays, overnights.
Right. Because airplanes still fly on holidays and weekends. Mm-hmm. So his schedule has been crazy. When we first started homeschooling, though, you weren't working here in the state, here. Right. You were, in the state even. You were gone for 6 weeks and home for 6 weeks. Right. And you wanted the kids when you were home. Right,
I wanted to see them. I wanted to go do stuff with them, and we couldn't get out of the house because we were stuck. We had to go to school the next day. We were trying to pull them out of school, on a Friday or...
Yeah, so they were missing school anyways. But now, he works Friday through Monday, so we go do things with the kids Tuesday through Thursday, and we live in Florida near all the theme parks and the beaches, and they're packed on the weekends, so we get a break from all the hustle and bustle, I guess you could say, by doing it this way. So that's another part of the schedule of the reason why we homeschool. I think number 4 is one of my big reasons.
Yeah.
Like, this is one that, like, really, like...
Yeah, so we'll just, I guess we could call number 4 their upbringing. Their...
I was trying to explain it to Brianna earlier.
Yeah.
Like, I was telling her how we were making notes.
Child rearing. That's going way back, too. Again, I grew up on a dairy farm.
Okay, so we wanted to raise our children. We didn't want our children to be raised except by us, which just sounds very selfish when I put it that way. But when I was pregnant with Matthew...
Kids, why is that selfish?
I don't know. When I was pregnant with our son, Matthew, we decided that I wasn't going back to work anytime soon because we didn't want our kids in daycare. At that point, it was just our oldest, Brianna and Matthew. And we didn't want them to go to, like, daycare. And, you know, I'm not putting any parents down for this. Like, I don't want parents to think that I'm putting them down for this. But when you go to work and you're dropping your kid off at 7 o'clock in the morning and then picking them up at 6, and then you got to come home and you got to do dinner and bath and bed, and if they have extracurricular activities to throw that in there, like homework, how much time are you really getting with your child to raise them with your values? I mean, of course, there's the weekends, but when we were in extracurricular activities, almost every weekend was taken up with those.
Right.
So at that point, like, who's really raising your children? It's the teachers, the daycare workers, and their peers. And we really wanted to instill certain values in our children that we just didn't feel like they were going to get in that type of environment.
Right. And again, there's nothing wrong with...
No, my best friend's a single mom, and her kids go to daycare and aftercare, and she still raises her kids. They're great kids. We wanted to raise our children.
Right.
So.
And we were fortunate enough to have that opportunity to be able to.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's a good opportunity. I mean, you have a college degree. I don't actually have a college degree.
I do.
Worked through college, but could very easily go to work, but she chooses to do this.
Yes.
And we were perfectly fine with the way we live and finances and stuff like that.
We're lucky.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So
we make some sacrifices so that I can stay home, but
right.
You drive a beautiful truck.
I
drive a brand new minivan.
I love my
Watch for that video.
Into a video now.
So number 5 is really simple. We just have different views than our state standards. We live in Florida. Our state standards aren't as radical as some. Okay. Our daughter's watching us and laughing. What?
What about Elbow?
The cat just jumped off the chair and headbutted the wall and like that.
Must be your cat.
You know he's my cat. He's fine.
So we also have lots of animals because our kids can't stop adopting them.
We raise a farm. We have
we live in an
dogs,
HOA.
too. I'm just kidding.
Can we get a ferret?
Expensive.
Okay. Well, anyways, number 5. We have different views than our state standards, and we live in Florida, like I said. They're not as radical as some, but we have actually just recently printed off the state standards for all of our children's grades, technical grades, I guess you could say, because they're kind of they're in their own grade. They're in a Matthew grade or a Brianna grade. Like Brianna, you know, Matthew can explain the string theory, but
Special grade.
Brianna has. Anyways, there is some in there that we just so much disagreed with. I don't want the schools teaching my kids about sexual health. I believe that's my job as a parent. And that goes back to we wanted to raise our children.
Right. And again, it's all online. You're welcome to research this stuff yourself. Take health science?
Yes, health science.
Health science is very interesting when you look at what's being taught, even in 6th grade, 5th grade?
Even 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Was I went because I had went down to third grade to look at it. I know in Florida the web address is cpalms.org to get the state standards, and you can see every state standard for every grade and subject. You can minimize, like you can, no, that's not minimize, filter your search. So.
There's a lot of very interesting information and just stuff that, as I was looking through it, and I was like, this was taught to me by my parents, and
And I do want to say we actually have very open and healthy, like, communication with our children about sex and drugs and all of those things that I think some parents wouldn't necessarily touch on, but we feel it's really important for our kids to know about those things so that they don't learn inappropriately.
yeah, and I can explain it this way from my own personal view. Coming straight out of a Christian school, I tried the college route coming right out of school, and then I went into the military. Big shock, huge shock when you change worlds like that. It's definitely a big shock, but it also opened up my eyes and it allowed me to realize that I have a choice as to which way. And I mean, we're the same way with our kids as far as, you know, religion and even their thought process. I mean, if you look
We
at
encourage, like, thinking.
right, if you look at, let's just say, the Big Bang Theory versus, you know, the religious theories of how the world began. We don't tell them, hey, this is how it is.
Mm-mm.
We tell them, do your research and come up with your own answer.
Right.
Because it can be taught as much as anybody can teach it, and it can be researched as much as anybody can research it, but I wasn't there.
I wasn't there either.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I'm kind of special. I'm just kidding. But it doesn't just go out of, like, just that part. We also just have conversations with at least with our oldest, about sex, about drugs, and we have very open communication. She's less likely to talk to him about those things, but she talks to me about everything. So I know way too much probably.
But that's fine with me too.
So, and then number 6 is actually going to be pretty shocking to most people.
Yeah, I'll let you hit on that one. There's no subpoints there.
There's no subpoints? Well, there wasn't any subpoints in the last 2.
I'm not allowed to call them bullets anymore.
Oh.
There's subpoints.
Okay. So, number 6 is actually going to be cost, which is going to be kind of shocking for a lot of people. And I mean, I don't know if the cost is really less or more. I think it depends on your homeschooling style. For us, it's less because our kids would still have the computers, they would still have the TVs to look up things on YouTube, and we really don't use paper and pen and stuff like that. Like, we don't have those school supplies.
Right now, it's actually school tax-free weekend.
Yeah, tax-free weekend in Florida, and everybody's school shopping, and I will go back to my best friend who is single and doing an amazing job at being single, but she is still a single mom, and we actually got her kids' school list, and I went school shopping for them, and we're just going to tell Steve that he doesn't need to know how much I spent. So, and that wasn't even including clothes.
Yeah, don't ask. That's not bad.
But I mean, there is other costs that we incur because we homeschool that I don't know that most people would come across.
Right. And I mean,
We don't use curriculum that costs anything to us.
right.
There's many out there that are free. You can get free curriculum. If you want, like, something that's very specific, I mean, yeah, you can spend money on it. But in Florida, there's things like FLVS and
I know what she's getting at.
there's FLVS, which is a free option. There's Khan Academy. Oh, Brianna's bringing me books. Okay, so this is actually how Brianna did. I don't know if I'm allowed to show these. Am I allowed to show these? I guess I am. This is how Brianna did all of middle school. Yes, middle school. Or these books. She absolutely loves them. I actually just got her a biology book that she has yet to read. She was supposed to take it on vacation with her. There's a hair. These, you can get them on Amazon for about maybe $15 or less. And the reason why You like them Briannas because they're straight and simple and to the point?
Yeah, and they don't make you have to do the lesson over and over again.
Right. So there's not a bunch of tedious work, and so that's why she likes these. But I mean, there's everything from science and American history. You didn't bring me I think there's one for coding out there, because I think I just bought it from Matthew, actually. Math.
The math and the biology.
The math and biology. And so we don't incur a lot of cost, because I think even if my kids were going to public school, this is still a great book. This is still an amazing book. It gets them way ahead, or the way it explains it.
And if you really think about how, at least how teachers taught when I was in school, it might have been the same for you. There were sections that they would skip because,
Right.
you're going to learn that in another grade, or,
Right.
you're going to learn that as you learn this.
Right.
This is kind of taking all that middle ground out and kind of laying it out.
Right. Like this is everything for middle school. She completed 3 years of middle school in a year and a half, I want to say, with just these books. I mean, there was other stuff we did too, but just these books.
Right.
This was really her only major curriculum. So the cost aspect of it, but we do have other costs. I mean, if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty of it, like, we have this huge cost of me not working.
Yeah, that's...
So, like, we were saying we weren't going to go into pros and cons, but I don't work. We are home all day, so our electricity bill's higher, our water bill's higher, our food bill's higher. But technical difficulties, I guess. Our camera stops recording randomly. So we were talking about cost. And, pros and cons. Like, I think at the end of the day, we don't spend as much money on, like, back to school supplies and back to school clothes, because let me tell you what, I would not want to go back to school shopping with Brianna.
No.
To be like $2,000.
It's hard going regular shopping with Brianna. Definitely not IKEA shopping.
Didn't spend that much.
In other news.
And other news. Anyways,
Yeah,
but I think the cost of not having that back to school, like, is pretty good.
But it also gives you that opportunity to put...
The cost somewhere else.
Right. I mean, we can take... we can do a camping trip. We can do...
Right. Which we have planned
field
here
trips.
soon. Yes, we have some field trips planned here
Right.
soon too.
And we can choose where they go. They're not chosen by the school. Like, oh, hey, sign this permission form. And...
Right. We're actually planning on going to Wonderworks soon, and the Orlando Science Center is one that we have found to love. Like, our kids love it. But I think when we really talk about costs, like, one of the things that homeschooling doesn't cost us is time with our kids. Like, we get so much time with our kids, and they're eventually going to grow up and move out and not be here anymore. Hopefully. No, all joking aside, but eventually one day they are going to grow up and move out, and we're not going to have them anymore. And we've grown this, like, perfect little family, and to not have us all together anymore is going to be absolutely heartbreaking. So we're going to try to suck up as much time as we can now.
Right.
So, which Steve's been struggling with lately, with our oldest. She's 14, doesn't want to be around her parents as much. But, so those are our 6 reasons why.
Sleeping.
Those are our 6 reasons why we homeschool, personally. You can add in all sorts of reasons that you homeschool. I know a lot of people do it because of religious beliefs.
And
Or
there's some great religious
curriculum.
curriculum.
Yeah.
There's really good ones.
We choose not to use them.
Right. And we may do a video on what we do.
Yes,
later on.
I had actually planned to do a video on how we homeschool. And check, like, watch in the next, like, week. I'm actually going to release 2 videos: how we homeschool and how to homeschool in Florida. I don't know about other states. I feel like Florida's fairly simple to homeschooling.
Yeah. And
But-
we're still kind of gearing up for it too. We try to keep them similar to when their friends are going to be at school.
Yes, we still take summers off.
Right.
Yes.
So just so they can still hang out with their friends and.
And we're about to go back. Everybody's about to go back to school, so we're gonna go back to homeschooling and kind of rein in the video games a little bit. But anything else you want to add of why we homeschool? Because we did make this list at like 7 o'clock this morning.
Right.
No? Okay. Well, I guess, do you want to close this out? Well, thank you for watching, and look for our videos coming up. He might not be with me. I might actually bring in my oldest to do pros and cons of homeschooling in public school, but watch for those videos. They should be coming out in the next couple weeks. And so how to homeschool in Florida, how we homeschool. I might even do one on curriculum, because that's been one thing that we've personally struggled with, that we feel like there wasn't much guidance on. So, and pros and cons.
Yeah.
Yep.
That sounds good.
Okay. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoy your day.
Thanks.